am an arts administrator. I am an arts supporter. I do not paint anything. I do not photograph anything. I don't really consider that I perform anything. So I was kind of thrown as to what to include in this exhibition. And when I think about my work in the arts, one of the things I do a lot is facilitate conversations between different groups of individuals. So I was actually really inspired by a conversation with my friend Alayna over here about what support and mentorship to artists should look like. What does it look like currently? What can it look like? What do artists actually need? And so I gathered a group of my friends here today, and they are all multi-hyphenate arts people in the Milwaukee area. Well, actually outside Milwaukee now, sorry. One from outside of Milwaukee, who does work in Milwaukee sometimes. As I said, all multi-hyphenate art people, and they all work with organizations that provide support or mentorship to artists in various different ways. So I wanted to kind of have this convening to kind of discuss publicly what support and mentorship to artists looks like currently, what it can look like. Yeah, so anyway, I will start by having the panelists introduce themselves and the organizations that they work with. A lot of them work with multiple organizations and have their own art practices as well. And then we'll kind of dive into having them talk a little bit more about how their multiple organizations provide support and mentorship to artists. And then I'll have a couple follow-up questions and then open up things to the audience for a little Q&A. Does that work for everyone? Yes. All right, cool. Rue, since you're sitting next to me.
Hello. I'll just talk about it. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth Gordon. I prefer they, them pronouns, and I'm the co-executive director of Mitchell Street Arts. If you don't know about us already, our mission writ large is to promote creative abundance on Milwaukee's South Side. I like to say that we serve across the artistic pipeline. So what that means is for folks in the neighborhood, we do creative placemaking projects to bring people in to the artistic flavor of our city. We also then, with emerging artists, host a gallery program that's specifically meant for folks who have never been shown in the galleries before, and then also for more mid-career artists as well. And then for more professional artists also, we have a residency program where we give free studio space out, gallery show, and some other funding and resources too. And then we do fun art classes that are free and donation-based that are open to everyone. Anything from ceramics to darkroom photography to woodworking to figure drawing and other stuff.
Thank you, Ruth. Symphony?
So all of the mics were handed to you on mute.
Hello.
So if you want to demute them, they should be all hot, ready to go.
Awesome. Okay. Listen, my job is not to do that, okay? My name is Symphony Swan. I am a Milwaukee native, proudly Northside, and I am an interdisciplinary artist. I am also the executive director and founder of the Creative House, which is a revitalization of my childhood home, where we are working to shift it into an artist gallery space, community archive, and studios. Our mission there is to provide support for radical imagination, support, and collaboration, where I'm working with Black and brown artists to give them a space to belong in this city, while also reactivating a neighborhood that doesn't get a lot of attention. That's my nighttime job. During the day, I am the manager of public initiatives with the Ruth Arts Foundation.
Hi everybody, my name is Rachel Hausmann Schall. I'm here kind of in the multi-hyphenated way that Maureen described, but mostly I'm here to be a representative for a program called the Grilled Cheese Grant. We're an emerging artist grant and exhibition program. For the last 8 years, we were a program designed specifically for MIAD and UWM students to receive funding for their kind of culminating senior exhibition projects. We just completed our 9th year of the program. It's a one-day event. where we raise money with grilled cheese sandwiches. And in the 9th year, we decided we wanted to expand the program more broadly by defining what an emerging artist is to us and how we can support students, but also maybe very recent graduates, and how we can continue to provide financial support for those types of individuals in both Milwaukee and also now a larger geographic area. So that's some of the things I'm working on with Grilled Cheese Grant. I guess my nighttime job, but also a lot of jobs. I'm also an artist residency and adult program manager at the Milwaukee Woodson Art Museum in Wausau, Wisconsin. So it's in central Wisconsin, if you've never heard of it. I'm sure there'll be lots more good conversation. Thank you.
Talk about being an arts writer.
Oh, also I'm an artist and a writer as well. I write for some publications, Art Dose Magazine and 60 Inches from Center.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Yee, and I want to thank Maureen, I want to thank Schall, MARN for inviting us to share our experiences and what we do. I think a lot of times what we do kind of goes under the radar, or perhaps we just have to make it more of an effort to get ourselves out there in the public realm. I'm an educator, I teach at MARN. I am a visual artist, and I run a gallery. I'm a gallery director for Hawthorn Contemporary. And perhaps this is where we overlap with Grilled Cheese Grant. I run an organization. I hate to call it organization. It's a two-person operation. We don't have a place. We don't have a home. It's very much of a grassroots organization called Plum Initiative. And we've been running the Bridgework program. Bridgework Professional Development Program for the last 9 years. This is our 10th year coming up. And with that program, where we overlap somewhat is the fact that we help to transition recent grads from an art school, or they don't even have to be recent grads, emerging artists who are really dedicated to their practice. We help them to sort of manage their practice, help them to develop their professional business aspect of what does it mean to sustain your practice, especially in Milwaukee. So it's a 10-month program. We provide artists with studio spaces and mentorship throughout. Plus, there are usually 3 or 4 solo exhibitions involved with this program.
Hello everyone, my name is Nomka, and I'm here representing the Open Fund. A little bit about myself. So I'm an artist living and working in Milwaukee, and I'm also an undergraduate student at MARN. So a little bit about the Open Fund. It's run by 2 Wisconsin artist-run spaces, the Open and the Poor Farm. The Open originates from the River West area in 2016, and it is run by John Riepenhoff. And the Poor Farm is a residency space, but also just like helps artists create their work. And it is, I think, a little bit north of Milwaukee. And the Open Fund Artist Grant started in 2020, and it is mainly to help artist initiatives to get their projects going that are already existing, or help them imagine new works. And we are supported by the Warhol Foundation and also by Ruth Arts. And we are currently in our 3rd cycle, and we're in the process of announcing the recipients, and for every cycle we invite jurors from outside of Milwaukee who are artists and curators, and yeah.
Awesome. My folks behind me, some of you already know, so I'll just, I'm not going to turn my back too long, but just to make it a little bit easier. And if you happen to be on the outside, there's like 2 chairs up here, so that's like my housekeeping for right now. Anyway, my name is Alayna and Pernell, and I'm first a visual artist. I'm not from Milwaukee at all. I'm from Alabama, born and raised. And I am the Associate Lecturer of Photography and Imaging at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And I also am currently the Program Director over the MARN Mentorship program. And I'm also a writer, so all of the things. Specifically, I write for a publication called Lens Scratch. And that is what I do. That sums it up. Okay, cool.
Yes, so as I said, a really cool group of panelists here, and I'm excited to hear from each of them. I do also want to mention that this is not there are also many other really cool arts organizations in the Milwaukee area that are not represented here. This is just, I think, a really kind of good representation, though, of what is happening in the Milwaukee area. So panelists, you kind of beat me to it of like talking about your organizations a little bit. I want to ask a follow-up question to each of you, though, of how specifically does your organization define or think about support for artists? What are kind of those tangible things that you are doing to support artists? Is it money? Is it space? Is it writing about them? Is it providing business support for them? What are some of those tangible things? Do you want to go around in the circle again?
Okay, I'll go. I think specifically Ruth Arts is in a unique position, and I'm fairly new, so I don't know if I'm quite qualified yet to, speak about all the things, but they're uniquely situated where they are able to support, we're a National Arts Foundation, so I think that's one thing to be very clear about, in that we're not just looking at Milwaukee, we're looking at art very much from a global standpoint. And we're uniquely situated to be able to support artists with financial generosity. And so a lot of the stuff that we are funding, the projects, the artists that we are funding, comes with a nice dollar amount.
I would go off of what Symphony said. We are a very region-specific, local granting organization, and it is very specific to Milwaukee County. And for us, it's really important to support artist initiatives that speak to the community and that are collaborative and that also invite other artists. And we also support monetary support, like have financial aid, and that's sort of like our main what we can offer. We don't have anything like professional development, because I think for us it's important to just shed light on organizations in Milwaukee that are very like location specific, whether it being exhibition spaces or publications, and yeah. So we also receive the financial generosity from Ruth Arts, which is amazing, and so then we're sort of able to like concentrate the money in a more Milwaukee, like here.
And I think I'm going to jump in because I think we're in a similar boat of providing financial support for artists. So the Grilled Cheese Grant, similar to the Open Fund, has an application process where emerging artists will apply. Their applications are reviewed by a jury of creative professionals from outside of the city. We try, or if we can't, just sort of a diverse kind of panel that we picked. We're also an organization, speaking of you in that relationship to that word, we're an artist-run organization, so it's myself and 5 other people. And to the capacity that we can, over the last 9 years, we have tried, in addition to monetary awards for artists, to provide additional opportunities. And some of that is something that we don't maybe make known super publicly, but the one-day event, all 5 artists, so every year there's 5 different artists that participate in this one-day kind of celebration. They have artwork hanging up on the walls. They, the event is usually around 200 or 300 people, and so we hope that during the event they're interacting with folks and meeting people, making connections. But then sort of post-grant, in the past we've done things like a mentorship program with Shane McCaw and Brent Budsberg. They've been big supporters of the program over the years, and they've worked with Grilled Cheese Grant finalists to kind of in a mentorship kind of way, help produce work, have an exchange. And then we've also, over the past years, facilitated solo exhibitions for some of our finalists beyond the grilled cheese grants. I think there's several ways that, in the capacity we can as a really small team to try and help with all those different aspects of like what it means to be an artist and what it means to be an artist in this city.
Go for it, Jason.
All right, so I'm going to primarily talk about Plum Blossom Initiative because I teach in MARN, but we know what the outcomes are. There's definitely a structure there. And Hawthorn Contemporary as well in the gallery. But Plum Blossom Initiative, can you all hear me back there? That's my teacher voice. But so the Plum Blossom Initiative, we really run on no funds. And unfortunately, we're not able to fund artists to participate. Monetary funding is not available yet for us. We are a not nonprofit. We're not for profit. We're just kind of there. And I think we want to try to avoid being a nonprofit because it comes with certain restrictions that helps us not to be nimble with our programming. And for profit as well, we just want to be able to provide as much knowledge and insight and experience to emerging artists as possible. So we have exhibitions, like I mentioned before, we have 3 to 4 exhibitions, and these exhibitions happen there are duration of 2 or 3 months in between. And we're asking artists to create an all new body of work every time they show their work. So it's a very much of a pressure situation, but hey, creatives, we all work hard. You have to be able to sort of handle the pressure. So we want to make sure that whoever that we select to be part of the Plum Blossom Initiative's Bridge Work program, that they can handle that pressure, which will also boost their confidence as well. So with the exhibitions, we have exhibition in Milwaukee, we have an exhibition in Oshkosh, and we're currently having an exhibition in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and next year we have another organization that's going to be joining the Bridgework. So it's important to note that Bridgework started in Milwaukee 10 years ago, and it has expanded to other parts of the Midwest. Because they're all jumping on this idea of let's make things happen for us, for the artists. When we say us, we're talking about artists, or the creatives. So we have these network of like-minded organizations who are participating in this Bridgework program, and they're sharing their network and they're sharing their knowledge. So our artists from Milwaukee can show in Oshkosh or Madison or Kentucky or Michigan. So that's, for us, is the most exciting part about this Plum Blossom Initiative, is they get to make work and they can show work.
I'm gonna kind of add to that in a way because I love the spirit of that work. And that, in some degree, is what prompted me to start the Creative House, which is a nonprofit because I decided that I wanted to play that game in order to get funding. So, because I wanted to do something that felt much bigger than me. And so, I, with the resources I have, which was my father's house when he passed away, I inherited that, wanted to give it back to the community, and specifically where we were centering the imaginations, thoughts, opinions, and work of Black and brown artists, intentionally on the north side of Milwaukee. And so while we are very much still grassroots, even in our planning as a nonprofit, our work and our intent is to continue to provide space, an uncolonized space for folks to be able to exhibit, learn how to be an artist, fail and still feel safe in that space. And so what I've been doing is leveraging all of my years of experience as an art teacher, arts administrator, and giving that information for the free. Because, I've had the privilege to go through art school and have been in circles and in rooms where there's certain information that you just don't get unless you're in that room. And I want to be able to share that with folk who are interested in pursuing the arts as a career and telling our stories. And so that's I love the spirit of that work, for sure.
Someone else still haven't talked.
Hello. So, the most concrete thing that Mitchell Street Arts does in terms of providing support for artists is that we run the Twig Artist in Residence program, where we give free studio space out, along with a little bit of funding, as much as we can afford, not a lot of funding, working to make it bigger, to artists on a juried, rotating 12-month basis. Beyond that, we really try to look at what are the resources that artists need in a kind of larger, more holistic approach. An important component of this is that the organization started 3 years ago and we opened up to the public about 9 months ago. I like to say that we were just born. And so right now we're still kind of in this beautiful emergent strategy that I hope we never really leave, where we're still kind of pushing up against the walls and figuring out what exactly are our priorities and how are we trying to explore the boundaries and intersections of mental health and creativity. So another one of the kind of softer focuses in how we support artists is really just giving free and pay what you want programs that are open to the entire community, but it's been really lovely seeing this broad spectrum of artists come inside the space. Figure drawing, I think, is a great example where we have some incredible artists who come to this. And then there are also just folks that live a block away and have never tried this before and want to see what happens. And then trying to do some more experimental stuff. Later this month, or later in May, we are doing a figure model orientation program, for instance. So for folks that want to learn how to figure model, they can come and take a class on this. And so that's just like one example of exploring creativity and mental health at MISA.
They have sound baths there.
We just had one last night. They're every month. Come again.
Sure. I think I look at it in a couple of different ways. Because I think in terms of like supporting other artists, like I wear a couple of different hats outside of like supporting myself as an artist. But it's like I'm at this program here, or I run this program here, and supporting that looks different for me now as I was a mentor first before I stepped into this role, and that was great. And now I'm like a bit on the outside, where I'm just making sure that everybody feels supported in any way that I can. I'm sending out emails and setting up all the things and like making sure the programming is set up well, like set a program like this. And then I think with teaching that's a little bit different, which I think I'm thinking about what Symphony is talking about, of like you go through all the schooling, and as some of you in here are students, like some of y'all are working, and that can be really hard to like find time to make a creative practice, and the anxiety that comes with figuring out how is this sustainable afterwards. So I think being on the other side of that, for me, I see I think providing resources as something that's very direct, even if it's in a way of like, I don't know, like Maureen, you visited my class before, and it could be like, can you come talk about this thing? And then they're like, actually, where are all of the cool free galleries? Because I have a policy in all of my classes that I'm not gonna share opportunities with them that are paid, because again, they're students and you need to save your money. I'm saying you loosely, but that's what I tell them. Or if there are things that they need, if I have to come out of pocket with it, which isn't all the time, then I will do that because I like care. If they're like, I want to do this thing, which I teach photo, then I will offer my personal studio. So it's just, I think it's just stuff like that of just, not that everybody has to be that open. I think I just tend to be because I needed that when I was, you know, trying to do the thing of growing up and being an artist and being a resource and trying to grow, and having that shut off of being told no and having my potential cut off, it just sucks. So yeah, I think that support, financial support, we love that, fantastic. But also having that support that is both financial and also non-financial simultaneously. Because sometimes financial support, when there's not all of the other support, can also equally suck. So, yeah, I think that's.
Sure.
Totally.
Totally. When I think about like what are kind of the resources that artists need, obviously funding is like the loudest creature in the room, and it's the elephant that we're all looking at, and we're like, can we just have more of that? But to try to make it more nuanced from there, I really try to break it down into like a trinity of funding, community, and information. And so I heard a great quote a few years ago, and it said, try to consume as much information as you possibly can, because you never know when a moment of inspiration is going to strike you. By contrast, I really try to be a Luddite and avoid as much information as possible, because I think like trying to step into boredom actually helps me feel more creative. So at MISA, the way that we do that is through a few different programs. Some of the ones that we're ramping up right now is just artist potlucks. I think that everyone in this room is really tired of ever hearing the word networking. So why not just replace that with like, let's break bread together and share our Instagram handles. And then also creating a space for community dialogues around difficult issues. If you're from the Midwest, then we all know that's often difficult to address conflict. And so part of MISA's approach to creativity is by hosting and facilitating conversations that often aren't had in other places around the city.
I had no idea that you did pop ups as well. It's quite busy. Yeah, I want to come. Invite me next time.
I make soup sometimes.
Oh, it's lovely. So I love that you kind of broke it down into funding, community, and information. And I feel like all of the panelists really hit on that in various different ways. Some of the programming that you mentioned is definitely more information-based or community-based, funding-based. So yeah, I think that's really, really wonderful to hear about kind of the breadth of support that your organizations, or not organizations, people just doing stuff, are doing. And one question, and I was kind of struggling about where to put this in the panel discussion. I want to ask your opinions about why it's important to provide support for artists. And I'm asking this because very often I'm in a role where I'm asking for more funding to re-grant to artists. And I am asking people who are like, well, I can give this money to help sick people, or I can give this money to help artists. And I feel like everyone in this room agrees that support for artists is really important, but I'm also really interested to hear you articulate why support for artists is important. Both the monetary support and the community information aspect.
Because we deserve it. I mean, we can get deep, I guess, but like, I think that I fundamentally believe in what we say all the time at the Creative House, is that artists can help solve complex problems. And so I think that when you give artists the space, the time, the finances, whatever, to really think critically about whatever it is that they're doing, it adds value to space, place, communities, whatever. And so when we say why should artists, and I think that is by design also, that when it's time to chop something out of the curriculum, it's the arts that happen first, because it is already understood what happens when folks are tapped into their imagination and creativity and what comes from that. And so I think that the more that we can invite people to really imagine and think differently about our current circumstances, it makes everyone better. Is that a mic drop?
I don't know if you're actually. No.
I would never do that, Adam.
But yes, that was a mic drop moment. Thank you for that.
I don't know if mine's gonna work. It feels like it doesn't want to work anymore, but I want to say like 1,000% yes and agree with you wholeheartedly. I also think I wanted to maybe like jump a little bit on what Alayna was saying earlier, and there's something about like, so the grilled cheese grant like way back was started because it was something that we as a group of artists experienced, and that was like, hey, we need money. Like, hey, we just dropped all this money going to art school, and like, hey, and like, that was a real thing that we experienced, and it wasn't just like this, I don't know, independent thing that happened under a rock somewhere and you just sort of like hide it away. Like, we talked about it as a group, and we were like, why can't there be more money for this like culminating project that we all have to make? And then I've also seen like over those 10 years, 9 years, things happen because of that. Maya has a small scholarship, or they used to have a very small scholarship that they gave to one student, and that is now expanded, and they give that scholarship to, I don't know, 20-some seniors. And I like to think that's also because we, in the early days, wanted to make sure that that like financial kind of pot was spread, and it wasn't just sort of going to one person. We really wanted to try and support as many artists as possible, and I know there's like certainly more work we can be doing, but it's, I kind of, and also I'm going a little bit on a tangent, but I also just sort of like, part of me is annoyed that that's even a question. Like, why support artists? Like, why not support artists, you know?
I'll just also say that, and I didn't mention this before, but I've also received Generator. I also was a MARN mentor. I've been through like a lot of these local support measures. And I'll just say that I'm in this space currently where I feel like I'm here now. And now that I'm here, I recognize that all this is made up. Like, somebody made these rules and everybody just said, we're gonna follow them rules. And this is going to be the best practice. And I'm in this space now where, and even like with Ruth and how we work with some of our grantees, where we're really deciding to trust the artists, trust the people who are doing the work. And so I'm in this space where I'm like, I'm gonna just make up what I wanna do and create a whole new world for myself and what I wanna see my art as. And I'm living in that. And so I think when we decide to tap into our own artistic powers and really define for ourselves like what success is in a way, then it becomes easier to exist and play the game, because you can stand firmly and like, you know what, I'm tired of trying to fight to get in galleries. I just inherited a house that I don't know what I'm about to do with. I'm about to make my own and make my own rules that go with that. And so I think there are a lot of different philanthropies and organizations that are beginning to really think like, how do we do this in a way that feels more equitable, more in line with what the people are asking for and what they need. And so it's less of this like, we're here and we get to dictate what the trends are because we have all the money, versus like, let me actually talk to y'all and see what it is you need and figure out a way to make it happen for you.
If I can also talk about funding, I absolutely agree. I think artists deserve funding. We have to value ourselves first. But the reality is that we are talking here, we're kind of preaching to the choir. We need to empower ourselves to speak to folks who are not like-minded like we are, but advocate for yourself, the arts, and also, for me, most importantly, support each other. Support your creatives, your fellow creatives. I think that's the most important thing. Do not, if there's a balance between funding and support, non-monetary support, and if funding's not coming to you, then that should not stop you from moving forward. Right? That sometimes you support and you make things, and that's why I really admire Symphony. That you are making things for yourself. You're empowering others, but you're also empowering yourself to make things happen. And I'm telling everyone who are just thinking like, gosh, we're beaten down. Say, no, you have the power to do something about it. Sometimes you don't need money to start, right? And if they believe in your project, money will come. But you can't expect money's gonna come first for you to do your project. It doesn't always work that way.
That's so good. It's so true though. Like the first step is to just do it. And then when you start to do it, people will notice. People are always noticing anyway, but when you actually are intentional about doing something, things do seem to feel like they're falling in line. Slow, but falling in line nonetheless. Just leave a mind on.
Oh, hello. Okay. So going off of what Jason said in terms of just getting started, even if you don't have any type of financial support, if there's a need for you to start something, and whether it's with your friends or like just trying to engage with the community, you should start it. You should do it. And just like speaking from personal experience, 2 years ago I started a book club for AAPI people that I host at Woodland Pattern, and I had this idea because I found that it was difficult to find people that were like me, and I wasn't even aware of that there were people like AAPI people in Milwaukee. And so I asked Woodland Pattern, hey, I have this idea for a book club, would you be open to host us? And I've been doing it for the last coming up on 2 years, and it is hard work, and sometimes you don't want to go, like you have other things going on, but knowing that going and talking to people and making them feel safe and understood, where you don't have to explain yourself, is really important. And projects like mine, maybe not particularly like a book club, but if it's like, if you have an idea for like a drawing night, or if you want to just create something that's visually related, like to the visual arts, and it's like you can experiment, you can collaborate, you can engage with the community. That's sort of what the Open Fund exists for. It's for groups coming together and trying to make something that they see as not present or non-existent in Milwaukee. And also like something that John says is like the Open, he started it a long time ago, and he's been doing stuff and creating venues and platforms for artists with no money at all. And like also sort of like the reasoning behind the Open Fund is to provide this support, this financial support, and for people who've been doing it for years without anything, and receiving these funds can change it like drastically. And even if you haven't been doing something, if you have an idea, write a proposal and apply. Like you never know what can happen.
Okay, that was written out. So Symphony, your rule breaker, rebel self, totally has thrown off my next question, because you just kind of like dove into it, which is great. But I kind of want to take a step back and think about. So I feel like it's a fairly well-known fact that Wisconsin is either usually last or second to last in ARTS funding, depending on We're either 49 or 50th in ARTS funding of all the states. But I wanted to take a step back and ask each of you panelists, since artists and creatives are world builders, using your imagination and the things that you've already done, what is the ideal world or Milwaukee? What does that look like for you in terms of supporting artists?
Is that the question?
Sure. As a world builder, what does support for artists look like for you, ideally, in either Milwaukee or globally?
When I think about Milwaukee, I love Milwaukee through and through. Born and raised, I proudly represent my north side all day. What I think we're seeing, especially on the north side, is a lack of value for artists, right? And so I think if I dream of a new Milwaukee, it means that we are including artists in the conversation at the beginning. not city planners, politicians, and whoever else sitting and trying to solve the problems and then saying, can you paint a mural? We've got it figured out now. Can you paint a mural right here? This is gonna make our neighborhood better. Like, I think that artists can bring and contribute so much more to the problem solving of making Milwaukee a more equitable city for everybody. And so I think that that is what I imagine, is that artists are considered experts, just like a city planner, just like a politician or a doctor, and they are respected as such. And so I work really hard to try to display for folks that an artist practice, if you pull back the layers, I feel like artists are also great researchers. And so like, I can only speak for myself, my artwork has a lot to do with healing and family and nuanced relationships. And there are a lot of things that can be healed from creating space to navigate that. And so I think that a lot of artists' work underneath has some type of complex human issue that can illustrate what politicians can't say and get people to really understand more deeply because they saw it in the art first. And so that's what I envision for a better Milwaukee.
Does anyone want to follow that?
I'm gonna start going first. Alayna, what you got? I'm looking at you. You do.
No, it's fine. I get to, it's cool. Sometimes I do, and then I'm like, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I think
Someone just gave you a couple $1 million to support artists. What do you do with it?
I feel like, for me, it's a both and. The money is great. Again, the money is great. I've been given it. It's fantastic. It helps a lot. Along with the money, I also just want artists and people in the arts to be treated so much better all around, because being tossed money and then in any way like puppeteered or something, like it's just not enough. Like it will never be enough. That's what I want. I want, money's great, but like tossing money and I'm like, oh, it's better. It's not always better. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I know. That I know. Money and being treated better. You can be a better human and toss money. Both would be great. That's what I wanted to say.
So when I think about the work at Mitchell Street Arts, we predominantly work with socially engaged artists. And I think often of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which at the bottom has things like food and housing, and then at the top has things like emotional self-expression and self-actualization, and kind of the higher needs that we all have as human beings. And so going back to your question before of like, well, why don't I give my money to a hospital? You know, that's really real. Like, I think that it's important to consider that question, like as an organization, as more just a group of 2.5 employed people and a bunch of volunteers. Like, this is funding that really could have gone to like life-saving surgery. And that's not to take away from our value. If anything, it's to put that on par with that. Because we all are sitting within the entire pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And what is the purpose of a self-actualized city? What does the self-actualized city look like? It's a place where people have the time and resources and space to reflect on who they are and who they want to be. And no amount of job training or hospitals are ever going to give that to people. That might give the resources immediately to like help create an environment where people have more time to do that, but it's the organizations like all of us here and all of the people that are in this room that actually help create a world where we are more reflective and thoughtful and thinking about how do we want to be in relationship to one another. And it's these sorts of conversations that help us step into the utopia we all want to be in. I'm not originally from Milwaukee. I'm originally from Chicago. I know, a lot of people don't like but a lot of people...
Hello, Chicago over there.
We love you too. But for a lot of people that I've spoken with who are from the city, they all say that they do feel like Milwaukee's going through a renaissance right now, especially compared to 10 or 20 years ago. Somebody who I know named Michael Lagerman, the way that he described it is that Milwaukee is in its creative sandbox moment, where if you want to do something, just build it. And obviously there's a lot of barriers, and that like can feel really flippant, but I think there's a really beautiful idea behind that can be stepped into.
Can I just add also? Also, go ahead, I won't, it's okay.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's important that we tell ourselves new stories about Milwaukee. And I think for a really long time, many institutions in this city want to have one story for Milwaukee, and I think that's where we pigeonhole ourselves, because we don't need one story to tell the story of this beautiful place. There could be multiple stories.
Do you just want to like grab the mic?
Going off of that sentiment in terms of we have $1 million, should we use it for a hospital or should we use for the arts? I think that question inherently is difficult because there needs to be a shift in perspective in terms of there is enough money for the arts and there isn't enough money for the hospitals or whatever we are comparing it to. And I think that's where, for example, like Ruth Arts is really great because they see that and they provide that. And like as an artist, it's really hard to always have to like explain myself and tell people why the work is important and why it's important to have organizations like Mitchell Street Arts where people can go and have a figure drawing class. And there's so many facets of the arts, like whether it's artists and their practice or whether it's providing some sort of artistic engagement to families or parents or just individuals who are curious and want to play. And I think the art is a great opportunity to just, I don't know, like go through the day-to-day life and make sense of yourself and your own emotions. And I honestly think that artists are the best people because we are so introspective and we have to bring so much out of ourselves to understand each other, but also make ourselves understood. And I feel like artists are generally people who are we're not judgmental, like the weirder, the better, I don't know. Like if a lot more people engage with us, I think they would feel a sense of, I'm okay the way I am. And yeah, so there should be a lot more funding and there should be so much more money. And also money is great, as Alayna said, but also just like keeping the integrity of, I'm an artist and just be respected and not seen as like, I'm going to art school and I'm going to make no money and like, I don't know how I'm going to provide for myself, but as, oh, you're
artist name's Petacoin. You may know Petacoin, some of you, but just a fantastic sculptor. And she was fielding questions, and one person stood up from the audience and asked, I'm from a small city in the Midwest, and there's no funding. We don't have a lot of places to show. We don't have the support. What do I need to do, or should I move? And going back to Maureen's hypothetical question, that I would really love to abolish, get rid of this sort of defeatist attitude of artists. So many artists feel like they're defeated, and that's my ideal world. Maybe even without the money staying the same, but for us to be strong enough to kind of go through tougher times and persevere. right? And I have the tenacity necessary to make a difference in our community. And I think that will be, that's enough to make changes. Albeit, it'll take a while, but smaller changes, tangible changes. So I want to get rid of the attitude of like, there's no place for me here.
I want to add on what kind of Jason was saying. So as someone that spent a lot of time in Milwaukee years ago and then has moved away, in a community like Wausau, I think in my work at the museum, I think we talked about like that art has the power to heal, and like some of the offerings for audiences who might not have access otherwise, free programming. I'm really like humbled and lucky to work with audiences at the museum, people who have memory loss and dementia, people with low vision and blindness, and like literally walk through the galleries with someone and with like express permission to like touch art with someone who's been blind since birth is like, that is unlike any other experience that I have had. And then like trying to describe that to them, and same for people who can't remember something that happened 10 minutes ago, but you're sitting there with them and like drawing a picture or listening to like, oh yeah, put that here, do this. And I think there's like so many small, and to me that's a big thing. I think about those things like every day, and that's my job. I get to go do that. But then in maybe the bigger picture, those are like small moments where we're seeing like art actively changing someone, and they come back to have those experiences. And I think also thinking about something Symphony said about, and sorry, like I'm just sort of remembering like there's sort of the one, that certain institution, I think you're saying about like the one Milwaukee story, or like not getting pigeonholed. I also think there, in my opinion, needs to be more like visibility for what is happening, like on a media level, on a like publication type level, because there's so much great activity happening here and beyond. And then also like I think we know about it because like we're here in the room and we're showing up and we're participating, but then like there are others out there that have no idea, and that's also a real problem in this city and the Midwest generally.
We need those art writers.
Yeah.
That's you, see? You should be writing about this.
I guess, Symphony, do you have any last mic drop moments for us before I open things up to the general public?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I'll let you.
Listen, my light shines bright, honey, so if you need glasses.
I would like to take this moment to, I know we are running out of time, but I do want to open things up to the audience and see if you have any questions for the panelists, or, wait, did I skip you? No, wait.
I'm not skipped. Sorry, I don't need that. There's a spot over here. I just don't want you left out, and I've been like looking, and I like have not been able. I can help you. Sorry, but like breaking the fourth wall for a minute.
Okay. So I have a hard and soft question. So 2 questions. One is just listening to the panel. Thank you all so much, y'all. I guess one is like, can you comment on the contrast between like established artists versus grassroots artists? So for example, I have a friend who works for Milwaukee Art Museum. She's a funder. We knew each other from working in fundraising. And she said that has been the easiest fundraising job she's ever had, because there are people who willingly give to keep the Milwaukee Arts Museum going. We all love the Arts Museum, right? Like we low-key hate rich people, but then we need rich people, right? Because like they fund things. So if you all can blame it on this right here. If you all could talk a little bit about the contrast of that, like I guess the irony of like how certain things are easily funded, right? The like more, I don't know what it's called, like not antique, but like historic things, or more high value things versus like people who are up and coming who want to become those things. That's the hard question. The soft question is to, I'm sorry, I don't know names, so I'm going to call you Black Shirt. The Black Shirt, yes. Who talks about spending time doing your art, and I think it was a few other panelists who talked about just doing the thing. You know, when you have a 9 to 5, when you have the stressors of life, and for me, myself, in my mind, I want to do the thing, but when it comes to actually doing the thing, to creating the space, right? That's one of the things that I've realized recently in life is like, yeah, artists need time to sit and think and do nothing, and then come up with ideas, and then play, right, and practice. So, like, what would be your advice for those of us who can't get over that hump to actually, like, make space and make time to do that thing that develops yourself as an artist or creator?
So I love my job, and that makes me terrible at doing my own art. It takes up all of my energy, all of my time, and I think that I'm contributing to the city and to my community in a really important way. But like personally, my ability to like make my own art is abysmal right now, and I've just intentionally made that decision for myself. Some of the artists and my friends in the city that I see thriving the most are people who work bullshit jobs, who don't care about what they do, because that gives them the energy and time to actually do what they love. And I think there's something really beautiful and just like intrinsically makes sense about that. But yeah, you know, rich people fund us and we all smile and they give us money and we kind of talk shit about them sometimes.
But Ruth, going back to the fact that your day job doesn't let you make art or doesn't give you the time to make art, don't you consider your day job also part of creative placemaking? Isn't that also part of your practice?
I do. I sometimes cry a little bit while I say that, but I do.
Okay.
Oh, no? I don't want to make any
I
sense.
can go after you.
No, I'm talking too much. Y'all, nope.
Okay, okay. Yeah, actually, I don't need this because you're right. It's so deceiving. Okay, and it showed up in like my faculty review. I am a boundary setter to the highest degree. So I think, and I say that because it's a conversation that me and my one of my class of students that we had, really my upper levels, of like some of them realizing like actually I'm not the artist that is like in my studio for 8 hours a day. Maybe I'm the one that's in there once a week for like 2 hours and then I'm good. Which I'm like, that's so great. I'm so glad that you realize that. And then I'm also that artist that's like Saturday mornings from like, I don't know, 10 to 12. That's what I have. And then the rest of that, I need to chill. Because I feel like, I know if I'm in the studio, which doesn't happen, that is not my story. If I'm in there all day, I'm not gonna be doing anything. There's nothing for me to do, and like you said, like having the space to like rest and do nothing isn't important. So I think it's like about figuring out what works for you, because what works for one person doesn't work for the other person, and they're just like different measures of I think like success, which is like a whole different conversation in terms of like what that even looks like or what that even means from like one person to the next and how that's measured over a certain amount of time. So yeah, I think just like removing limitations, I guess, of like, especially if you like work a busy job or busy jobs, which happens a lot in the arts, which is why I bring up the boundaries, because sometimes like that is needed to be able to like find a time to carve that out. Otherwise it's like burnout can happen, and then that's just like a mess for the self, and then everybody else is just a casualty to a not good version of oneself. But yeah, that's my long answer. And I always have to make eye contact.
So I do agree with Alayna. I think it's all individual. Like, you know, everyone's so different, and you understand your likes and dislikes, and you understand your limits and your schedules. I feel like I have a 3.5 full-time job. And the way that I stay sane is to believe that whatever that I'm experiencing, you know, yes, a lot of the jobs that I have, running a gallery or Plum Blossom or being an artist or teaching, they're all somewhat related. They're all in the creative field. So I think I understand that and I appreciate that, but I also think that I try to find ways in which the experiences that I'm getting outside of my art practice, art making practice, I try to find sort of a sliver of creativity there. Like, what can I extract from this experience that I'm having that I can bring to my studio, right? Because I can fight it all I want, but it's not good. It's not good to fight it, right? It's not good. Like, I hate, you know, this sort of split things that I'm doing. I come home and I make artwork, and that may be the reality that a lot of us are faced with, right? And if you cannot afford to get a sort of a more flexible job, then that's perfectly fine. You can't, you have to work with it, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, you have to have a certain positive attitude about it. Say, what do I extract from this experience that may be different than what I'm making in my studio? How do I take advantage of it? And I think there will be something that you can bring to your studio, and that makes you feel a little bit better. Because I have artist friends who, let's say, work at a nursery, and they bring their experience of working with plants and selling plants into their practice. So I think you have to find ways to sort of bring that together to a certain degree.
Yeah, I was gonna maybe take a stab at the hard question. And I think if I remember it correctly, maybe it was just something about feedback about like who money comes from. Okay, I'm new to the museum world, but as someone that has had maybe some face time with some individuals like that who have money to give and they want to support, a well-recognized, established institution, to the extent that I'm able to in my role, I think being able to show them the effects of what their money is doing has been like very beneficial and maybe personally like gratifying for me. And I think also makes me understand kind of in the opposite way, like, oh, this isn't just like a rich person who's like, sure, here's my money. Like they are a person too, and like if they are able to observe some of the education programs or hear from the director about those experiences that I was mentioning earlier, like I think there's something good in that, and then they can maybe feel validated. But then also, like I sort of treat my position there, which is sometimes very difficult to maybe be the spokesperson for like those people who can't speak up, or like then maybe make those people who have the money aware of like other spaces or other things that are going on that might like we're just gassing it up, right? Like, hey, I have this friend who's doing this really cool project. Have you heard of it? And like trying to just even plant little nuggets with those individuals. And I think that stuff actually goes a long way, especially if you like build a rapport with someone, because then they, there's a level of trust there. And then also I was going to recommend, because this happens to me with the job stuff and the balancing stuff, if there's like a time in your personal practice where you're just feeling like really in a slump, and if you're I think like even just inviting a friend over, or like build your own little community and see if like someone's willing to like, hey, can I bounce this idea off you? I want to like start a project, because sometimes it's just hard to like gain energy and then just like word vomiting it out to someone, and then having their like reaction to it might just give you the energy you need to start.
And I might, if it's okay with the panelists, I'd actually like to take a stab at why it's easier to fund organizations like the Milwaukee Art Museum and harder to fund nonprofit arts or like more grassroots arts organizations in Milwaukee or just in the world in general. So I have a master's in museum studies, which is a random thing that people can have a master's in. And the very first class that we took was about called museum theory. And basically the very first thing we learned is that museums are colonialist institutions. And their job, their role in society is to tell a very specific narrative. So people who want that narrative to be continued are going to continue donating to museums like that. Grassroots arts organizations, grassroots artists are not sticking to that approved narrative, and therefore it is a lot harder for rich people who have a high stake in keeping the narrative the same, don't want to fund that. So, yeah, just every time you walk into a museum, remember it's a colonialist institution. It's there to educate the masses.
Going off of, I'm gonna use the mic because I never get the chance to use the mic.
I love
Going off of everything that everybody said and also what Maureen said is I wanted to say that despite what I said before about how great making art is and being an artist is, making art as a non-artist or anybody really is also a privilege, and trying to like answer your question in terms of having hurdles or not having the time, it is a privilege. And referring back to rich people, they have the time and the resources to go to museums, to invest, to look at art, to read books. And as someone who is an artist and just a person trying to survive, working and going to school, it can be a lot, and sometimes I feel like I don't have the energy to even like focus on my art, so I don't even want to imagine how it is for you to sort of like overcome that hurdle. And I just want to recommend, it's really helpful to, I don't remember who said it, but have like meeting with friends or setting like a date, a set date to sort of tell yourself, oh, I have to do this and I can't say no because I promised this person I'll be there, to showing up. And whether it's taking a class or going to the museum, like setting up a day for yourself, even if it's once a month, if that's the time and the energy you can like sort of come up with, that's really helpful because you can put it in your calendar or put it on your phone and say, oh, that's the day, and sort of like look forward to it. And also, just like from personal experience, like I spend hours on my phone just scrolling. And thinking about that, I often ask myself, I could be spending this time so much better doing something else, even if it's watching a movie or something. I don't know if that's helpful.
I have one last question. Did everyone respond? Sorry.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering, thank you for the discussion, by the way, that was awesome. But I was wondering if all the panelists, and I'd be curious about what you think too, Maureen, if you can mention a moment of mentorship or support that you received that made a difference for you in your practice, or that just informs how you think about it.
Okay. I have two. That was a really good question. My first, I think, started as a MARN mentor a whole bunch of years ago. My mentor at the time was Miss Della Wells. I love her so much. But because she was my mentor, I got proxy to Matope Johnson because they are besties in some regard. And so in one of my sessions, Della was there and she had also invited Matope. And one of the things he said to me, which I think also answers your question, because I was trying to figure out how to build my practice. And for folks who have children, building a practice becomes a lot harder because now you have to manage like your children. And he said to me, go into your studio for, set a timer and go in with the intent to start and finish something in whatever time you've allotted. And if you do that, you know, consistently for however many times you give yourself, you will build a body, and then you will start to learn. That piece of advice never left me, and so I would go into my studio for an hour, and I'm just like, okay, I am not gonna obsess and get in my head about this. I'm gonna start and finish something in this hour. And I did that every day for like a month, and then at the end I had 30 pieces, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this advice was amazing. So that's one. But I also think too, along the way, I have collected people, and I hold those relationships very sacred because small walking is a thing. And you just never know when people are gonna circle. I mean, like you, for instance, I met you through another artist, and then like now I can say we're in community with each other. And so I think not taking for granted the moments that you meet someone, because you just never know when they're gonna come back around and be able to offer you an opportunity or, you know, help you with something. I mean, like everybody up here in some form I've met in other spaces where I'm like, oh yeah, you know. So I think that's my answer to that question.
Thank you.
Right, folks? I think.
Okay, so I think from my point of view, it's definitely like from a position of privilege where I am able to go to art school and have all these mentors and like talk to my peers and professors. And it's not an option for everybody. I totally understand that, but I have received a lot of mentorship from my professors and being able to talk to them, whether it's outside of class or for asking for help in whatever it is. But also outside of that, going back to the support and like showing up to certain events, is meeting people and also kind of be like shameless a little bit with the measures that you're in and just like talk to people. Like you can really make connections by just saying, hey, how do you like this work? And it doesn't have to be necessarily an artist. It could be, you don't know who you run into in these events. It's obviously they're art interested or art related or art adjacent. And I really want to encourage like finding somebody or finding groups of people where you're like just sharing like experiences and having a conversation, and that can lead to more. Yeah, I would recommend like don't be shy, have conversations and be open.
So the closest person in my life, I would say, is a person named Jim Liu. To give just a brief moment of background information, Maureen knows Jim Liu. He made drums for the Grateful Dead and was a consultant for the Harvard School of Medicine, and also has a theater degree. So weird person. But a big thing that he... Yeah, good weird, yeah. A big thing that he helped me believe in myself is that I'm malleable and that people change over time and that we change based on the experiences that we have. And so he didn't say this phrase, I think it's more well-worn than that, but don't be afraid of letting go of who you are now to step into who you may become.
Mic drop.
That's okay, I can project. I think I have two as well, because it's kind of like a double, because I mentioned it earlier. I am from here. I've been in the Midwest for 5 years, but that's kind of like I think a shorter is my first was my undergrad professor at the University of Alabama, Allison Grant, and just in honest, I guess, feedback from her when I decided I wanted to go to grad school my junior year of undergrad, because I was at the time much more of an overachiever. And her honesty with letting me know, one, that the schools I had picked that were primarily in the South were not going to be it for the level of where I was at, but also for the potential that she saw in me,
my portfolio was not going to work to even get into the schools that she thought that I could get into. And then spending the summer before my senior year completely traveling with the help of my mom to different museums that were dominantly about African American history, because going to a PWI that is kind of watered down, and having the respect from my said professor of not watering down my artwork and not watering down my blackness. And getting into grad school, which is why I left all of my family in Alabama and coming up here and succeeding in grad school, getting to grad school, and my mentor who I had as a mentor when I started teaching assistant for a year and a half, which was Latoya Ruby Frazier, and having her guide me through and through, and literally taught me how to be both the artist, teacher, mentor to literally everyone else I encounter now, and just being better in general. So I think I had a nice streamline, especially of not having not a whole lot outside of like my family, and just knowing how to navigate an art world from the both of them, which is important, especially as a younger artist where it can be easy to get taken advantage of. So I needed, I think, Allison's grace with getting to grad school, but Latoya's sternness of getting through grad school and knowing how to navigate when I got out. So yeah, there's that.
I just want to make sure I answer the question.
What was the question?
Correctly. So what was the question? Sorry.
It's okay. It was all really good conversation. Yeah, it was. If you could think back and mention a moment of mentorship or support that you received, and share that, or like if mentorship or support that impacted you, or just to share it.
Yeah, I guess I was never comfortable with sort of a hierarchical language, even though sometimes I say it like mentoring. So something that I can think of that debunks the idea of this hierarchy is I had a former student a few years ago visit my studio, and they were interviewing me for a certain article. And one question that they asked really like checked me, which is they asked, what are the risks that you're taking in your studio? And I was stumped. I was just kind of thinking about it, and I honestly could not come up with an answer. And that helped me to recalibrate, reevaluate how I was thinking about my art practice, thinking about what I was making. And it's always, those moments are always great when somebody that you're seeing totally unexpectedly say something that like blows your mind, right? That Milwaukee artist community is very, very generous and supportive and sharing. And even in a school situation like MyAd or UWM, that the faculty there are there to share their knowledge and experience. And you should not feel like you're imposing by asking for support and asking questions. And I just feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but just there are less people that I'm encountering that is hesitant to ask for support or for help. And I'm actively like, so my Plum Blossom initiative is part of that, me just being proactive in reaching out to these emerging or younger artists to say, hey, I want to help you, right? But I just want more people to be more forthcoming.
And when we feel safe and like we belong, that happens more too. Because when no shade to UWM, because I love my Peck School of the Arts, so that's where I got my BFA, but my time there, I can't say that I confidently felt like I belonged. And so I went through that experience, kind of just, I'm just gonna get through, and I'll just build my community, outside of the university. And it wasn't until, after I had been in my career as an art teacher where I can go back and be like, oh yeah, Kim. I love Kim, but Kim, I need some help. That was my homie. But I didn't always feel like I belonged. And I think that's a barrier for some students where it's just like, I don't even know if I should be in this environment. So to then ask for help seems like a burden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. It's been a long day. I think you all answered, right?
Yeah.
I didn't answer because I'm not really an artist, but I would say kind of like the most. I hate to use the word mentor. David Werner is not my mentor, but I will say that one thing I learned from working at his gallery, he started every staff meeting by reminding everyone who worked at the gallery that we are there because of the artists. And if the gallery is not serving the artists, we are not doing our jobs. The gallery is not doing its job. And I mean, say what you will about mega blue chip galleries, but that is definitely something that has stuck with me for life. So I hate to wrap things up because I feel like people have a ton of questions, but we have gone way over time, and I definitely promised at least one of the panelists that we would be done by 7, and it is 7:24. Sorry about that. So yeah, but thank you all for coming, and I'll at least be sticking around. Some of the other panelists may stick around if you have questions, but yeah, thank you.